Okay, we're live. So this is just going to be a quick tutorial on, or quick like walkthrough of the Kit repository. So what we're interested in is like the source files. So
hmm
the way that the repo is laid out is you just have the source directory, that's where all the interesting stuff is, and then inside this source directory, the entry point is always main. So we have like a bunch of subcommands here. Each directory is a subcommand, and that shows up like if you do kit help. Each of these, boot fake node or whatever corresponds to a command that you would actually use on the command line, like I don't know, kit boot fake node. So the entry point is main. So if we just look at this real quick, we just have like this is really simple code. It's the entry point is in the main file is the main function. It just calls
hmm
right like make app, and then this is all like boilerplate to right. We use clap to parse the command line arguments, and so this is just
hmm
clap boilerplate, and then execute is the thing that actually will like run stuff. So this file is pretty big, but it's just like a bunch of stuff to tell clap like what command line arguments we want to make available, and then actually like run based on those. So if we look at make app, it's just like a bunch of these like subcommand things, and then you define the arguments with these like .arg things.
hmm
So I mean, this all looks kind of the same. Like it's just like lines and lines and lines of this because it takes like I don't know 5 or 10 lines to define one of these arguments, and then so this defines like every single subcommand, every single argument in the subcommands, and so on. And then we do this this clap boilerplate, and then we execute based on the matches from the command line. So if we go and look at what does execute do, it does a lot more sort of like clap boilerplate stuff. So like boot fake node, we just go and we have so we're the top level of execute is like we match on this matches thing, which is a clap thing, and
hmm
each of these like the first term is like the subcommand, and the second term is the matches, and then the matches you extract the actual parameters from like using this like get one dot get one method, and you can
hmm
specify like the type and so on. And then the way that I have it laid out, each of these subcommands that when you actually execute it, you just call an execute function. So basically all that this execute main.rs execute is doing is we're just like getting these different parameters, getting them in the correct types, and then just like passing them into an execute.
Nice.
So yeah, this main is just like basically just like all kind of like boilerplate stuff. It's not actually doing anything particularly interesting, and I think that's a pattern that we'll want to keep. So like if you were going to add another subcommand, ideally
hmm
you want to do very little logic in this main. You want to put as much logic in like the subcommand as possible.
I see. I
Uh,
think, yeah.
any
By the
questions
way,
before I show like the subcommand?
yes. Well, one thing I guess you can also do is not just kit help, but also like kit boot fake node help, and it gives you like specific command,
Yeah, that's right.
um, specific or kit F in this case. Alias is very nice too. Like yeah, this is very
Mm-hmm.
nice. Um, Second thing, yeah, let's dive into it. Also, something we could do, I think, is I remember we have kit B UI only as a path argument currently.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I looked through this a little bit before, but I didn't actually do it. So I think good exercise or like showing how to add a simple thing to this repo could be to add a kit no UI,
Okay.
or or I don't know what the name would be perfect, but adding yeah one option and then seeing how that's passed to that specific build command and so on.
Okay. Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
seems reasonable. Yeah, let me just show you like what a
Mhm.
subcommand looks like, and then we can do that. Yeah, that sounds like a good idea.
Awesome.
Okay, so let's see here. What's a good one to look at? I'll show you a super simple one, and then I'll show you a more complicated one.
Mhm.
So I think um, maybe like setup is going to be real simple. So within these directories, you're going to have like at a minimum a mod.rs.
Mhm.
That's the entry point that's going to contain the execute rs file. But some of them that are more complicated have other files as well. So this is like just
Mhm.
very traditional Rust stuff.
Very nice.
Setup. So if we look at setup, the entry point is execute. Um, we like to, I mean, you know, the convention so far has been like, if you're going to do something that's slow, give like a dot 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 and then end with a, a nicely formatted done. But
Mhm.
it is what it is. So anyways, execute, here we don't actually even have any arguments. All that this guy is doing, setup, is just like checking, it's basically just like running all the dependency checks. So we check Py dependencies, we check JS dependencies, we check Rust dependencies. And then
Mhm.
the way that we do it is if we have any missing dependencies from JS or Rust, we just like spit out a vector. So then we'll just get whatever is not in that vector. So like PyDeps is a bit of a different animal because we can't do it by the command line. Like we need like sudo. So,
Mm.
but let's maybe look at, I don't know, JS deps. So we just, yeah, I mean, it's basically just all about appending what we're missing to this missing deps. So like we check if we have NVM, we check if we have node of the correct version, we check if we have npm, and then we just return this missing deps thing.
Nice.
Um,
One
mhm.
one question would be interesting. I mean, we're doing a lot of printing in certain cases, and I think you have some verbosity setting on Kit.
Mhm.
Like at least run test has a lot of verbosity settings you can
Yeah.
set in cargo.toml. Do
Mhm.
we have something well, setting up and done setting up is very useful, but I guess like in certain other cases, it could be well. Mostly this is a background thing, so you would just expect everything to work.
Mhm.
But just as a thing, like, do we have some way to essentially do what we're doing in the node, where we have different verbosity levels, so certain prints trigger if one flag is set, others don't?
Uh,
Or should we?
we should do that, and the way that we should do it is we should change these from print lines into using like a legit logging library, and then
Mm-hmm.
potentially even what we want to do is have like a logging file where we just like dump everything, and then when you are running your thing, you can set the verbosity. Like maybe the default is just like warning, probably error or above, and then you can set it to something lower like info or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Because that way, then you basically just change all these print lines to like, I don't know, like lib dot info or lib dot error, and then the logging library handles it for you. But yeah, that's a good idea. I'll make an issue after this call.
Cool. Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so that's a good thing to do. Any other comments before we look at a slightly more complicated one?
No, I mean, one thing with specifically depth scanning is I guess you're doing stuff that usually people input in the command line. So you're using just like run, what is it called, sub command in Rust
Yeah,
to
that's
actually
right.
do, say,
Let's
yeah.
see here. Yeah, so like here, like
Hmm.
Rust toolchain targets, we're just doing a bunch of like, yeah, run command stuff. Run
And
command.
then you pipe it to standard out, standard error. Okay, so yeah, just I guess out doesn't output anything in this case, or even if it's an error, you throw it in Rust if the actual run command fails, but you don't like capture whatever Rust up default does.
A lot of the times, yeah. It's going to be a very taste based thing.
Hmm.
We
Oh, I see.
do,
Here we do output. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. I see. Yeah.
we do. So maybe this is an example of a more complicated one. Run tests. Um, so here we do a whole bunch of logic in. Oh wait, where's execute? Okay, here's execute. So we do a whole bunch of logic in execute, we read in. So run test is kind of the exception to the rule. Usually we take like command line arguments. That's our way to get stuff in. Here we have like a file, like a TOML file that we read in, and then the only command
Mm-hmm.
line argument is just like where is that file.
Mm-hmm.
But we do all sorts of like there's a lot of different stuff that happens even just in the execute. But
I wonder
mhm,
how. Oh, get. Never mind. I was thinking like fetch version, and then that goes into get runtime binary of
mhm,
version.
yeah,
So okay, that's just like a specific binary from the repo. Okay,
yeah.
cool.
And so this is actually worth noting here is we do kind of jump between these subcommands, right? So here, actually, get runtime binary is used in both boot fake node and run tests, and
Mm-hmm.
it actually lives in boot fake node. So here on the left now is where you can see that code, and the organization here is, I would say it's like somewhat reasonable, but there are some things that could be cleaner. For example, I've tried to keep like the general principle is something like you're gonna have like you kind of want like the most basic to just have all of the library type stuff, and then the more complicated that are built on top of it to import from that. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of the functionality in run tests, like everything associated with like booting fake nodes, should probably live in boot fake node, and uh, a fair amount does, but not all of it. So I would say the organization could definitely be a bit better. It's not terrible. It's not perfect.
Mm-hmm. No, it looks clean. Nice.
Okay, let's see what else to discuss. I think that's kind of like the basic overview.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have any questions, maybe we can just do that simple edit that you suggested.
Mm, maybe show me quickly the inject message
Sure.
command, just because it's a good reasonable entry point, and then let's do the thing.
Yeah. So inject message is pretty simple. It's here. I'll show you on the right the options for that. So the alias is I. So you're basically just saying like where is it going to go to, like the process, what is the message, like in terms of the body JSON, and then
Mm-hmm.
where when I say where is it going to go to, I mean like the process inside our system. But then of course you also
Yeah.
need to specify like either the port or the URL that your node is running at. The default is going to be like localhost 808080, and
Mm-hmm.
you have a few other options here. So like one cool thing that you can do is you can just like put a blob from a file into your message. It's less useful now that we have the file system just being like, the Unix file system, but it's a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Oh, I see.
if we look at the code, it's basically we make the message. So this is like just like putting all of the pieces into the right places in terms of like what Kinode is expecting for an RPC message, and then this is going to be like a JSON sort of JSON object, and
Mm-hmm.
then we just send the request, and then we also do some parsing of the response so that we can make sure that it got where it's going, and that it has, and if it wants to like, if a response is sent, then we can print the response. So if we look at make message, it's like it's really just like massaging stuff into whatever
Mm-hmm.
form that the RPC message takes, and then send request is just like just hit this endpoint, right? Like
Very
all of the
nice.
work happens inside Kinode. So this way of interacting with it is real simple. And then we use this inject message throughout the rest of the subcommands, right? So like if we wanted
Mm.
to start a package, we aren't writing bespoke code to go and inject messages for start package. Like we're
Just
just
in the JSON and send it. Yeah.
yeah. So we are just like we're just
Nice.
like making a message and then sending it and then parsing the response. So
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. I just also realized you could do kit s with the subcommand port instead of URL. So now I don't have to type out HTTP localhost every time. Uh,
Yes. Yeah. This
very
was,
nice.
I forget who suggested it. I think it might have been Ben, but yeah, it's a nice little feature.
Good stuff.
Okay, so the suggestion was to do like a kit build modification. Is that right?
Yes. And
Okay. So right now we have UI only, and we want to have like a no UI. So
yes.
the way that you're going to do, so there's basically two places that you're going to need to edit. One is where the command line arguments are defined and parsed. That's going to be in main, and then in the kit build itself.
Awesome.
So using our favorite text editor, we can open, you know, build, and we can open main. So build is going to be here on the left, and main is going to be on the right. Actually, just let's focus on main for now.
Hmm.
So we can look at the build definition here, and then if we look again for this, quoted build, it's going to be where we actually do the parsing. So these are
Hmm.
two places in the code that we're going to have to edit. One is definition, and one is the parsing. So we want to do something like UI only, so let's start with that as a base, and then what do we want to call it? No UI.
I think so, yeah. No UI.
Okay.
Should we do an alias? UI only is U and no UI is N. I don't know. Yeah,
Um,
I
uh,
think actually probably not maybe, given that it's already a subcommand. And if you do run it often, you just kind of like up on the terminal and run it again.
yeah, so
Maybe.
usually, I mean, so you can define these. So there's the alias at the top level, and then they call it a
Oh, it's,
short versus a long command for like the
mm-hmm,
hep or versus hep.
mm-hmm.
Let's not do that for now, but I do think I do agree that that might be useful. So that could be like a, left to the viewer type situation.